The plea in the alley. The rain had stopped hours ago, but the street still smelled of rust, oil, and fear. Captain Elias Kane walked alone through the narrow alleys of Vera Prime's lower district, the kind of place where even the law preferred not to go. Neon signs flickered in alien symbols above him, and the hum of distant hover engines echoed like a heartbeat through the shadows. He had just finished a supply run for his ship and was looking forward to leaving this miserable planet behind, but something in the air tonight felt wrong. The crowd moved strangely, eyes shifting away from him as if they didn't want to be caught looking at the human. Elias had been in enough war zones to recognize that kind of tension. Something was about to happen, or had already happened. That's when he saw her. A small figure crouched in the shadows between two rusted cargo bins. At first, Elias thought it was just another street orphan, but then she stepped forward into the dim glow of a broken street lamp, and he froze. She wasn't human. Her skin shimmered faintly under the light, a pale lavender hue with faint lines that pulsed like silver veins. Her eyes were large, almost too big for her face, glowing faintly with a soft teal light. She looked no older than 10 in human years, wearing a torn shawl and clutching a threadbare blanket to her chest. She glanced around nervously, then locked eyes with him. For a moment she didn't move, then with sudden desperation, she ran straight toward him. "Mighty human, please," she cried, her voice trembling but loud enough to echo off the walls. "They took my sister, only you can save her." Elias blinked. Of all the things he'd expected to hear tonight, that wasn't on the list. He crouched down, scanning the alley around them. "Slow down." "Who took her?" "The Krith," she said, choking on the name as if it hurt to speak it. "The black, marked ones." Elias knew the name. Everyone in the Outer Rim knew it. The Krith marauders weren't just criminals, they were predators, taking what they wanted from anyone too weak to fight back. They dealt in weapons, slaves, and secrets, and once they took someone, they rarely gave them back. "Where?" Elias asked. "They came in the night, my sister Aria." She screamed, but no one helped. They put her in a black transport and went toward the Wraith District. The Wraith District, of course, a maze of abandoned towers and neon-lit streets, crawling with gangs, mercenaries, and worse. Even local security avoided it. Elias straightened, torn between walking away and getting involved in something that wasn't his fight. But when he looked down at the girl, he saw her shaking, clutching the blanket like it was the only thing keeping her from falling apart. Something about her eyes, wide with fear yet burning with hope, pulled at a memory buried deep inside him. He remembered another little girl, his sister back on Earth before the war, before the day he couldn't protect her. "I'm Elias," he said quietly. "What's your name?" "Lyra," she whispered. "All right, Lyra." He took a slow breath. "If we do this, we do it my way. You don't run off, you don't argue, and you do exactly what I say. Understand?" She nodded quickly. "Yes, mighty human." A faint smile tugged at his mouth. "Just call me Elias." Before they could move, a faint clatter echoed from above. Elias's hand went to the pistol at his side as he looked up. On the rooftops, half hidden by the shadows, 3 tall figures in dark armor stood watching. One of them raised a communicator to his mouth. "The humans getting involved," the voice echoed faintly. Elias cursed under his breath. He grabbed Lyra's hand and started moving. They weaved through side alleys, past glowing market stalls and flickering hollow eddies, deeper into the underbelly of the city. Lyra moved fast despite her size, leading him through shortcuts only someone born here would know.
But Elias could feel it, eyes watching from every shadow, footsteps following just out of sight. The Kryth already knew he was here, and they weren't going to let him walk away. They reached a narrow street where the neon light barely touched the ground. Lyra suddenly froze, her grip tightening around his hand. "They're here," she whispered. Elias followed her gaze. At the far end of the street, 2 Kryth enforcers stepped into view, their black armor marked with jagged crimson lines, the sign of blood debts. One of them pointed directly at Elias. "Return the girl," he growled, his voice deep and metallic, "or die where you stand." Elias's eyes narrowed. He didn't draw his pistol yet, but his body shifted into the familiar, balanced stance of a man ready for a fight that he glanced at Lyra. "Stay behind me." The enforcers began to advance, their boots echoing against the wet pavement. Elias's hand hovered over his pistol. The air between them seemed to thicken, the sounds of the city fading to nothing. That he had no idea how deep this was about to go. But one thing was certain, he wasn't walking away now. Into the Wraith District, the KRYTH enforcers moved forward like hunting beasts, their black armor absorbing the dim light. Elias could feel Lyra trembling behind him, her small hands gripping the back of his jacket. That he didn't give the enforcers the satisfaction of seeing him reach for his weapon first. Instead, he took one step forward, his boots splashing in a shallow puddle. "You want her," he said calmly, "you'll have to come through me." The taller of the two enforcers tilted his head. "You are far from your homeworld, human. Here, you bleed like anyone else." Elias smiled without humor. "You're welcome to test that theory." It wasn't bravado. It was bait. The moment the enforcer lunged, Elias moved, one quick step to the side, grabbing the alien's arm and using his own momentum to send him crashing into the wall. The second enforcer swung a jagged blade, but Elias ducked low, his elbow driving hard into the alien's ribs. In seconds, both were on the ground, one groaning, the other unconscious. Elias didn't waste time. He grabbed Lyra's hand. "Move." They darted into another alley, the smell of burning trash thick in the air. Lyra's bare feet made almost no sound, but Elias's boots crunched against the grit. Every turn they took seemed to pull them deeper into the city's dark veins. After several winding streets, they stopped to catch their breath beneath a hanging neon sign that buzzed faintly. Lyra pressed her back against the wall, looking around nervously. "They'll call more," she whispered. "The KRYTH always hunt in packs." Elias glanced down the street. "Then we need to stay ahead of them. Take me to the Wraith District." Lyra's eyes widened. "It's dangerous, even for me." He crouched so his eyes met hers. "If that's where your sister is, that's where we're going. Now lead." She hesitated only a moment before nodding. "Follow close. Don't look anyone in the eye." They slipped through a hidden passage between two crumbling buildings. The walls were damp, covered in patches of glowing moss that pulsed softly, lighting their way. The air grew colder, the sounds of the marketplace fading behind them. When they emerged, the sight made Elias pause. The Wraith District wasn't like the rest of Vera Prime. Towering buildings leaned over narrow streets, their windows shattered and black. Broken neon signs cast flickering colors, blood red, sickly green, cold blue, painting the shadows in shifting tones. Thin walkways crisscrossed overhead, connecting one leaning tower to another like spiderwebs, and everywhere, eyes watched from the dark. Lyra moved quickly, weaving between piles of rusted scrap and the occasional open fire where gangs huddled, their alien faces hard and cold. No one spoke. No one needed to. The human here was an anomaly, and anomalies didn't last long. Elias's hand stayed close to his pistol. His eyes scanned constantly, doorways, rooftops, alleys behind them. Every instinct told him they were being followed. They turned down a side street where the air smelled faintly of ozone. Lyra stopped suddenly and pointed to a small object half buried in the dirt. Elias bent down and brushed it off. It was a delicate silver bracelet, shaped like twisting vines. One of the links was bent, as if it had been torn off in a struggle. Lyra's voice cracked. "That's Arya's. She never takes it off." Before Elias could speak, a metallic voice boomed from hidden speakers all around them. "Human. Return the child, or die where you stand." Every shadow seemed to shift as figures emerged. KRYTH scouts, their armor blacker than the space between stars, their faces hidden behind jagged masks. Lyra stepped back instinctively, pressing against Elias's side. He could feel her heart pounding even through the layers of cloth. Elias's eyes swept the street. Too many to fight in the open. Not enough cover to hide. They were boxed in. Stay close, he said, low and steady. The scouts began to advance, weapons raised. Elias didn't wait. He grabbed a broken piece of metal pipe from the ground and hurled it at the nearest flickering neon sign. Sparks exploded, plunging the alley into darkness. In the confusion, he pulled Lyra toward a narrow service tunnel on the left. They slipped inside just as a blaster shot sizzled past the doorway. The tunnel smelled of damp metal and stale air, but it gave them cover. Elias kept moving, the echo of their footsteps bouncing off the walls. Where does this lead? He asked. To the old foundry, Lyra said between breaths. It's abandoned, mostly. Mostly. Elias muttered. She didn't answer. They emerged into a cavernous space lit only by the dim glow of molten metal flowing in cracked chan. Ls. The air was heavy with heat and the hiss of steam. Shadows moved in the upper walkways. Elias realized they weren't alone. The first fight, the old foundry, was a graveyard of machines. Massive furnaces sat cold and silent, their mouths open like the jaws of dead beasts. Broken conveyor belts stretched across the floor, and the air was filled with the faint hiss of steam from unseen pipes. Elias kept his pistol low but ready, his eyes scanning every shadow. Lyra stayed close, her small hand gripping the hem of his coat. The silver glow from her skin reflected faintly off the rusted walls, making them both easy to spot if someone was looking, and someone was. From the upper walkway, a heavy bootstep echoed. Then another. A tall figure in dark armor stepped into view, a rifle slung over his back and a jagged blade in his hand. His helmet bore the crimson slash of the KRYTH, human. The voice growled from the shadows above, you've wandered too far. Elias didn't answer. Talking was a waste of time. Two more figures appeared on the opposite side, blocking the far exit. The metal grating under their feet groaned as they moved, weapons ready. Lyra's grip tightened. They found us. No, Elias said quietly, we found them. He raised his pistol and fired, 3 quick shots. The first KRYTH ducked, the second caught a round in the shoulder and stumbled back. The third snarled and leapt from the walkway, landing with a crash just meters away. Elias moved fast, sidestepping the swing of the alien's blade. He drove his elbow into the KRYTH's side, but the armor absorbed most of the blow. The alien countered with a backhand that sent Elias sliding across the oily floor. Lyra cried out, but Elias was already rolling to his feet. He fired again, the blast striking the KRYTH's leg joint. The alien dropped to one knee with a roar of pain. More footsteps thundered in. From the side tunnels. The sound alone told Elias what he was up against. Reinforcements. They were surrounded.
Go, Elias barked at Lyra, pointing to a rusted staircase. Get up there, now! She hesitated, torn between running and staying. Elias shouted again, and she obeyed, scrambling up the steps as blaster fire scorched the walls behind her. Elias grabbed a heavy steel chain hanging from the ceiling and swung it hard into the nearest Krith, knocking the alien into a pile of scrap. The impact sent sparks flying, briefly lighting the room in orange and gold. From the corner of his eye, Elias saw Lyra pause halfway up the stairs, frantically looking down at him. Elias, she shouted, pointing to something in the shadows. He turned and saw it. In the far corner of the foundry, half buried under scrap metal, lay a small silver bracelet, identical to the one Lyra had found earlier. Aria had been here. The sight fueled him. He fired at another Krith, his shots forcing them back. Then he sprinted to the bracelet, scooping it up and shoving it into his pocket. But the moment he straightened, a low mechanical growl filled the air. From the far tunnel emerged something bigger than the rest, twice the height of a man, covered in thick black armor with spikes along its arms. The creature's helmet glowed faint red from within. In its hand was a plasma axe that hissed and crackled with every step. Lyra froze on the stairs, her voice small. That's not just a guard. That's a Krith warden. Elias had heard of them, personal enforcers for Krith warlords. A single warden could wipe out an entire squad of armed soldiers. The warden pointed the plasma axe at Elias. Leave the child, it said in a voice like grinding stone, and you may live. Elias stepped forward, his pistol still aimed steady. "You'll have to kill me first." The warden tilted its head, almost curious. Then it charged. The floor shook with each step. Elias dove aside as the axe came down, slicing through metal. Like paper, sparks exploded. He fired at the warden's back, but the rounds bounced off the armor. The Kraith scouts closed in again, forming a circle around him. There was no way to win by force. Elias glanced up at Lyra, who stood trembling at the top of the stairs. "Find a way out," he shouted. "But, go!" She turned and ran into the shadows above, her footsteps echoing away. Elias faced the warden again, his mind racing. He couldn't kill it, not yet, but he could slow it down. He backed toward the edge of the platform, his boots slipping on the oily metal. The warden swung again, and Elias dodged just enough that the plasma blade cut deep into a support beam. The metal shrieked and gave way, sending part of the walkway crashing to the floor below. For a brief moment, the warden was trapped under the wreckage. Elias didn't waste the chance. He turned and sprinted up the stairs after Lyra. When he reached the top, she was waiting, eyes wide with fear. "They're not going to stop, are they?" she asked. Elias shook his head. "No, which means we move faster." From below, the sound of metal twisting filled the air. The warden was freeing itself. The hidden passage, the sound of the warden tearing through the wreckage, was like thunder rolling inside the foundry walls. Every crash of metal sent vibrations up through the floor. Lyra flinched with each one. "This way," she whispered urgently, pointing to a rusted service door half hidden behind an old furnace. Elias pulled it open, revealing a narrow shaft of darkness. The air that drifted out was damp and cold, smelling faintly of salt and machinery. "Where does it go?" he asked. "Down," Lyra replied, stepping in without hesitation. "To the old smuggler's tunnels. My uncle told me about them before the Krith took him too." Elias followed her, pulling the door shut behind them. The sound of the ward's growl faded, replaced by the drip of water and the echo of their footsteps. The tunnel sloped downward, the walls lined with corroded pipes and cables that
hummed faintly as if still carrying power from decades ago. They moved carefully, Elias keeping his pistol ready. The further they went, the more the air felt heavy, as if the tunnel itself was pressing in on them. The only light came from the soft glow of the moss clinging to the walls and the faint silver shimmer of Lyra's skin. After several minutes, they reached a fork. One path led deeper into darkness, the other toward a faint red glow. Lyra pointed to the glow. "That's the old depot. The smugglers used it for trading things they didn't want the city guards to see." Elias nodded. "We'll take a look." The tunnel widened into a cavern-like chamber. Elias slowed, scanning the shadows. Then his eyes fixed on a stack of crates marked with symbols he recognized instantly, Earth-made serial numbers that he moved closer, brushing off dust to reveal the logo of an Earth weapons manufacturer. The crates were sealed but heavy, and the faint smell of gun oil lingered. "These are ours," he muttered. "Human rifles. How the hell did the KRYTH get these?" Lyra looked worried. "The KRYTH trade with everyone. They give stolen goods to warlords, gangs, even to some who wear uniforms." Elias felt a cold anger rising. This wasn't just about a kidnapped girl anymore. The KRYTH were stockpiling human weapons, enough to arm an army. And if those weapons made it off-world, human colonies would be the next target. Before he could think of what to do, a faint noise caught his attention, a soft, rhythmic thump coming from the far side of the chamber. He motioned for Lyra to stay back, then crept toward the sound. The glow of a small lamp revealed a metal cage, its bars thick and reinforced. Inside were two alien prisoners, thin, exhausted, and chained at the wrists. They stared at Elias with hollow eyes but didn't speak. "They're keeping more than your sister," Elias said quietly. "Liar." A stepped forward, her voice tight. "Then we have to free them too." Elias shook his head. "Not yet. First, we find Arya. If we start unlocking cages now, the KRYTH will know we're here." As if the tunnels themselves had been listening, a deep clang echoed through the chamber, followed by the heavy stomp of boots. Lyra's eyes widened. They found us. From the shadows emerged 3 KRYTH scouts, each armed with a blaster. Behind them, the warden's red glow filled the tunnel like a rising sun of death. Elias grabbed Lyra's arm and pulled her toward the darker tunnel at the fork. Run! They sprinted through the narrow passage, the sound of the warden's pursuit growing louder with every step. Sparks burst from the walls as blaster shots missed them by inches. The tunnel twisted sharply before ending at a grated floor above a roaring underground river. The water glowed faintly blue from minerals, rushing fast and loud. This is it. Lyra shouted over the noise. Smugglers used the current to escape to the docks. Elias looked down. The drop was at least 15 feet. The water moved like a living thing, ready to swallow them whole. Behind them, the warden stepped into view, its plasma axe igniting with a hiss. Jump, Elias ordered. Lyra hesitated. What about you? I'm right behind you. Go. She leapt without another word, vanishing into the churning glow below. Elias fired 3 quick shots at the warden before diving in after her. The icy water closed over his head, pulling him into the darkness. The rescue attempt. The water was a fist, closing around Elias and dragging him into the dark. The current slammed him against the tunnel walls, spun him, then pulled him forward with terrifying speed. Somewhere ahead, he heard Lyra's muffled cry that he fought the current, kicking hard until he surfaced for a single gulp of air. The blue-lit walls of the underground channel rushed past in a blur. Then, with a sudden drop, the tunnel spat him out into a wide cavern where the water slowed into a swirling pool. Lyra clung to a metal ladder bolted to the wall, coughing. Elias swam to her and helped her climb out onto a rusted platform. She pointed toward the far side of the cavern, where flickering yellow lights marked a large metal gate. Beyond it, muffled voices and the hum of engines echoed. That's the dock, she whispered. That's where they keep the transports. Elias crouched, listening. The voices were KRYTH, deep, rough, but hurried. The kind of tone soldiers used when they were preparing to move something valuable, or someone that he motioned for Lyra to stay low as they crept closer. Through a gap in the gate, he saw it, a black transport ship with jagged armor plates, its engines idling. Several KRYTH guards were loading crates and scanning prisoners with a handheld device. Then Elias saw her, Arya. She was smaller than he expected, even younger than Lyra. Her skin shimmered in the same pale lavender tone, but her eyes glowed brighter, a vivid, almost blinding teal. She was bound at the wrists and surrounded by 3 guards. One guard tapped a device on her neck. Arya flinched, her face twisting in pain. Lyra gripped Elias's arm, her voice trembling. They're taking her to the outer sectors. If she leaves this planet, we'll never get her back. Elias's mind shifted into combat mode. He counted the guards, 8, maybe 10, and noted their positions. The dock was lit by hanging flood lamps, but the shadows above the rafters were deep. If he could cause enough chaos, they might stand a chance that he spotted a fuel pump connected to the transport's engine. The nozzle was cracked, dripping volatile liquid onto the floor. An idea formed. Listen carefully, he whispered. I'll draw them away. When they move, you get to your sister. Cut her restraints, get her behind cover, and wait for me. Understand? Lyra nodded, her jaw tight. Elias slipped along the shadows to the far side of the dock, moving like a ghost between crates. He found a loose power cable hanging near a stack of metal drums. With a quick yank, he stripped the insulation from the end and laid it across the fuel spill, then he picked up a wrench and hurled it across the dock. It clanged loudly against the far wall. Over there, one of the guards barked. As they moved toward the noise, Elias yanked the cable free and touched it to the metal floor near the fuel. The spark ignited instantly. Flames raced along the spill, climbing toward the transport. Shouts erupted. Guards scrambled to put out the fire, leaving Arya's side unprotected for a moment. Lyra moved. She darted from the shadows, her small form weaving between crates. Elias kept firing short, controlled bursts to keep the KRYTH focused on him. He saw Lyra reach her sister. She pulled a small blade from her belt and cut the restraints. Arya swayed but stayed on her feet, her eyes wide when she saw Elias across the dock, but before they could retreat, a shadow loomed over them, the warden. Its armor was scorched from their earlier encounter, but its red visor glowed even brighter now. It stepped between the girls and the exit, plasma axe crackling. Elias's chest tightened. He was too far away. The warden raised the axe high. "Run!" Elias shouted, but neither girl moved. Then Arya did something unexpected. She closed her eyes. The warden swung, but the blade cut only air as Arya stepped aside a moment before the strike. Lyra grabbed her hand. She can see their moves before they make them. Elias used the distraction, sprinting toward them while firing at the warden's leg joints. Sparks flew, slowing the giant just enough. He reached the girls, pushing them toward the nearest exit ramp. "Move!" The warden roared and swung again, the blade smashing through a support beam. The metal above aimed, and a section of the dock began to collapse. Elias shoved the sisters forward as debris rained down, blocking the warden's path, at least for now. They burst through a side tunnel, the hum of the transport engines fading behind them, but Elias knew the fight wasn't over. The KRYTH wouldn't stop until they had what they came for. The final stand. The side tunnel twisted like the inside of a serpent. The air smelled of dust and burnt metal, each breath scraping Elias's throat. Lyra ran ahead, gripping Arya's hand tightly. Elias followed close, scanning every shadow for movement. Behind them, the sound of pursuit returned, a deep, rhythmic thud, heavier than boots. The warden had found another way around. The tunnel opened into a hollowed-out chamber, lit by faint shafts of moonlight cutting through cracks in the ceiling. In the center stood a figure Elias hadn't seen before, a KRYTH unlike the rest. The armor was jet black but edged with silver patterns, and the helmet bore no visor. Instead, a smooth, reflective surface hid the alien's face. Across the chest was a single emblem, the sigil of a KRYTH commander. The commander didn't draw a weapon. It simply stood there, blocking the only exit. Elias raised his pistol. "Move!" The commander tilted its head. "You think this is about a child?" "No, human. This is about what she is." Arya stiffened. Elias glanced at her. "What does he mean?" The commander's voice was low and calm, but every word carried weight. "She is not just gifted. She is one of the sighted, able to sense what will come before it happens. We will shape her into a weapon against your kind." Elias's grip on the pistol tightened. "Not today." The commander moved faster than he expected, closing the distance in a blur. Elias fired twice, but the alien twisted aside, the shots ricocheting off the walls. A metal-clad fist slammed into his side, sending him stumbling. Lyra screamed, pulling Arya back toward the shadows. Elias recovered, switching tactics. He feinted a step to the left, then roll. D to the right, coming up with his knife in hand. The commander caught the blade mid-strike, twisting it from his grip and sending it skittering across the floor. "You fight well," the alien said. "But this ends with you dead." From the tunnel behind, the heavy steps of the warden grew louder. The commander wasn't alone anymore. Elias's mind raced. 2 enemies, 1 way out, and 2 children to protect. No chance in a straight fight. He needed to break their rhythm. "Arya," he called, never taking his eyes off the commander. "Tell me where he'll strike next." The girl's eyes glowed brighter, the teal light reflecting off the commander's armor. "High. Right side." Elias ducked low as the blade came in from above, then countered with a hard kick to the alien's knee. The armor didn't break, but the blow knocked the commander back a step. Arya spoke again, voice urgent. "The warden, left side." Elias spun as the warden entered, swinging its plasma axe. He sidestepped just in time, the blade biting deep into the stone floor. Sparks and shards exploded upward. For the first time, Elias saw hesitation in the commander's stance. They weren't used to fighting someone who knew their moves before they made them. He pressed the advantage, driving the commander toward the warden. At the last second, Arya shouted, "Now, forward." Elias charged, shoving the commander into the path of the warden's swing. The plasma axe tore across the commander's armor, sending a spray of molten fragments into the air. The alien roared in pain, collapsing to one knee. The warden stepped forward to finish Elias, but Arya's voice cut through the chaos, 3 steps back. Elias obeyed without question. The warden's axe came down hard, but the impact cracked the weakened ceiling. A groan of stone filled the chamber, followed by a rain of dust. Then the ceiling gave way. Massive slabs of rock crashed down between Elias and the KRYTH, sealing the tunnel in a choking cloud of dust. Silence followed, broken only by the distant sound of dripping water. Elias coughed and turned to the girls. "We're moving. Now." They slipped out through the exit before the KRYTH could dig their way through. The night air hit them like a blessing, cold, fresh, and open. Above, the stars stretched endlessly, but Elias knew the fight wasn't over. The KRYTH had lost tonight, but they would come again. And next time, they wouldn't underestimate the human who stood in their way. A promise beyond the stars. The cold night air wrapped around them like a sudden wave. Elias slowed his pace only when the burning lights of the KRYTH tunnels faded behind them. Above, the moons of Vera Prime hung like silver coins in a deep indigo sky. Lyra still clung to Arya's hand, as if letting go would mean losing her again. Arya walked quietly, her bare feet making no sound on the cracked ground. She looked fragile in the starlight, but her glowing eyes carried a strength that didn't match her small frame. They reached a ridge overlooking the outskirts of the city. In the distance, the dark towers of the Wraith district were just shadows now, swallowed by the night. Elias tapped the comm on his wrist. "Kane to Iron Wraith," he said. "Prep for immediate evac. 3 passengers." The reply crackled in his ear. "Copy, Captain. We'll light the pad." When he lowered his arm, Lyra looked at him cautiously. "You're really taking us with you?" Elias met her gaze. "You think I'd leave you here after all that?" Arya's voice was soft but certain. "The KRYTH won't stop. They'll keep hunting us." Elias crouched so they were eye level. "Then they'll have to find you somewhere they can't reach. A human colony. Safe walls. People who'll protect you." Lyra's shoulders loosened, and for the first time since he'd met her, she almost smiled. They began the short hike toward the landing site. The wind carried the faint hum of his ship's engines, a sound that always meant safety to him. But tonight, it also meant something new, responsibility. As they crested the final rise, the Iron Wraith came into view, its sleek black hull glowing under the landing lights. The ramp was already lowering. Elias gestured to the girls. "Go ahead." They walked up the ramp together, still holding hands. Halfway up, Arya paused and turned back. She stepped down one stair and opened her palm toward him. In it lay a tiny silver charm, shaped like a star, worn smooth at the edges. "For you," she said simply. Elias took it carefully. "What's it mean?" Lyra answered for her. "It means we belong to the same sky now. You're part of our family." Elias swallowed the lump in his throat. He slipped the charm into his jacket pocket and nodded. "Then I'll guard that sky." Inside the ship, the hum of the engines deepened. He sealed the ramp, locking out the cold wind and the dangers of Vera Prime. From the cockpit, the city was just a scattering of lights, fading as they rose into the clouds. Lyra and Arya sat together in the co-pilot's seat, watching the stars grow brighter. For a long while, no one spoke. Then Arya said, almost in a whisper, "I saw something before we left. Not from here, not from now." Elias kept his eyes on the starfield ahead. "What did you see?" Her gaze stayed fixed on the darkness beyond the glass. "Ships. Hundreds of them. all flying the same mark as the KRYTH commander. And they were coming toward a blue planet. Elias's grip on the controls tightened. Earth. He didn't say the name aloud. Instead, he flicked a switch, sending their course deeper into human space. Then we'll be ready for them. The Iron Wraith leapt into the black, its engines burning like two bright stars in the endless night. Somewhere out there, the KRYTH were planning their next move. But so was he. And now, he wasn't fighting alone.